But I think that it's really important to sort of train this stuff and just do it. Implement the base stuff, the fundamental stuff over and over and over again. So as soon as you can identify what the problem is, and that's a whole other skill as well. You can't just train data structures and algorithms. You do have to, in my opinion, do LeetCode, because in the interviews that I've done, they don't just give you what LeetCode. A lot of times, what they do is like stuff like this, like the constraints. They usually don't give you the constraints. They sort of want you, when you're getting a technical interview question, what they're trying to figure out is, do you have like the skills to not only solve the problem, but like how do you think about the problem, and can you kind of get through it while also communicating it? It's two things in one, right? The bar is super low for communication working in software. The average person working in software is like very, very low compared to like the mean person in the population. Their like emotional intelligence is much lower than than like the average person. And so they're literally just looking for the fact that you can sort of communicate with someone else what you're doing, which is actually like a big deal when you're working. It's a sort of like crude measurement of it, but that's what it's there for. And so a lot of times the constraints aren't here. So you have to say like, okay, path sum, this one's easy. Yeah, how many nodes are there going to be? Because depending on the language slash runtime that you're using, depending on the runtime or language that you're using, there's a stack, limit. And the more memory that you slap onto the stack for every node that you're traversing, maybe this is, there's a million, the depth of this tree is a million. I don't know if that's a bad practice, but then in that case, you can't do recursion. Then you'd have to do it iteratively. And if you haven't done it iteratively, then it's like, oh, well, I mean, how do you solve this then if you only know how to? I mean, so trees are a recursive data structure, so it lends itself to sort of being, you use a recursive algorithm to traverse it. But, I'm certain that and this would be kind of a shitty like interview question, I would think, if they're like, we want you to implement this using this specific algorithm. That may be pretty stupid depending on the subject matter. But at the end of the day, if you fundamentally understand how to implement and work with data structures and the algorithms, it's pretty much a slice of cake. System design is actually, I find it more fun because it's not pass or fail. And there's actually a lot of different ways that you can do things. With these, it's data structures and it's algorithms. You have to use the data structures, you have to use the algorithms. So knowing how to implement this stuff is really important. Yeah, dealing with ambiguity. I hate it so much, Zach. I hate dealing with ambiguity so much because like I think that the coding interview is a decent enough. So now obviously there's ways to, it's not perfect, but like at the end of the day, it's like the people who complain really hard about interview questions being bad is like, hey man, if you have a better idea, you should start a company that vets candidates and do it better than everyone, and maybe they'll hire your firm to do recruiting or filtering for applicants. I actually do think it's pretty decent because it's not necessarily that knowing this stuff makes you smart, but the people who are smart know this stuff. And, there's people that get through where all that they do is study data structures and algorithms and they don't actually know how to program, and then they get the job. And that happens all the time. But I think it's a decent enough bar to, it definitely weeds out people who can't code. I will say that. And that's the thing is like, you have people who apply to these software engineering positions, and I don't know what the number is, but I would, with people using LLMs to spam their applications around, I would not be surprised if there is a decent amount of people who have zero programming experience who are applying to all these positions.